Awakening Your Everyday Wisdom, video number 1, Reality. Everything vibrates. Our scientists are making a lot of breakthroughs in the concepts of reality right now. And for me, it's changing the way I'm looking at things, and maybe you too. But before we dig into this topic, I'll do a brief introduction of myself. I'm a light worker and a seeker. And in this video series, I'm playing the role of fellow traveler. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm mostly sharing my everyday wisdom, and my goal is to help you access your own. So let's start with a quick overview of the 2 parts of this video. The first part, I'm just going to skim on a lot of topics that are coming into my awareness these days, and I'm going, whoa, is that right? And I'm questioning reality. I'm questioning the forces at control of our world, and you might be too. And so that's why I think we ought to look at them, but I'm not going to go into depth today. I do have other videos coming out where I'll take these various topics and dig into them with much more detail and information. And then in part 2, I'm going to share information on how you can access your everyday wisdom, and also ways to stay balanced. Our world is changing, and we need to be able to maintain our balance when things might get a little crazy here. So that's really the reason why I'm creating these videos. We'll start with a few definitions of reality. Now, these are coming from the Oxford Living Dictionary, and there are lots of definitions, and you could choose the ones you like. I just chose these for this video. So the first one is, reality is a state of things as they actually exist, as opposed to an idealistic or notional ideal of them. Another definition, reality is a thing that is actually experienced or seen. And this is especially true when it's unpleasant, like the harsh reality. And there's another definition, that reality is a thing that exists in fact, having previously only existed in one's mind. So an example of that could be turning a dream into reality. And then this one I really like. Reality is the quality of being lifelike. I got to thinking about that. Now, there are people who can see angels and ghosts, and some see demons, some see beings who've already passed on. And I go, whoa, well, if they can see all these things and they seem to be lifelike, maybe what we're saying is they're all real. And then here's a cute example. So I have a little dog, and every now and then he'll look up at the ceiling, or one time he looked at the wall, and then all of a sudden he went like that. And I go, what did he just see? I didn't see it. So the question is, are these animals crazy, or are they just seeing a reality that's not available to us as humans? So we're not going to try to make a distinction between the 2 words reality and truth. Some people see those as the same thing. But what we're going to do today is just stay on the reality side. It's up to you to decide what's true for you. So let's take an example. ESP. Is it true? Well, it's been documented that people can read other people's minds. And if you've ever studied anything about remote viewing, that's a little freaky. And that can happen way distances. So what remote viewing is I could go into a trance and I could see what you're seeing, even if you're hundreds or even thousands of miles away. So where does that come from? And this is very well documented. The military's done a lot of work on this one. And then there's this idea of levitation. Now, this isn't just for monks. There are some famous Catholic levitating saints. And I'll put some links in the references for you if you want to look into that a little further. But where I'm coming from is if these people can do it, it must be real, even if I can't do it today. Maybe I will someday. Another question mark is intuition. Where exactly does that come from? Is it only real to the person who has the intuition? So here's an example. You may have had an experience with this where you followed a hunch and it turned out to be a fairly remarkable outcome, and you got to thinking, wow, if I hadn't received that hunch from somewhere and followed it, this wouldn't have turned out the way it did. So keep that one in mind, because a lot of us have these hunches that we pursue. Or how about the converse? I knew that was going to happen, and I didn't do anything about it. Yeah, we get those all the time too. So back to our opening statement, everything vibrates. What does that mean exactly? I'll delve into it a little bit, but I am not a scientist. I'm not a physicist. So I'm only going to come to you with information that I've heard from other sources. Let's take a look at why everything vibrates. And we've all learned about atoms and how they're constantly moving, and they've got electrons and neutrons and protons and now neutrinos and quarks and all kinds of little things going all around the atom. So that's the idea. It's all in a vibration. It's all moving. Now, the way reality gets formed in our brains is our brains are like computers. They're taking in all this vibrational information and translating it into touch, taste, sound, physical matter. So our brains are the interface between the vibrations and the physical reality that we are aware of. Now, some people think that reality is only defined in physical terms. Well, that's kind of gone out with the transition from Newtonian thinking to the quantum physics world. Now, the quantum physics world gets a little strange, and you've probably heard about this, where they can take these quarks that are little parts of the atom and separate them over long distances because they exist in pairs. So they break the pairs apart. This could be thousands of miles now we're talking about. And if one quark is affected, the other quark instantly reverses its spin. So if this quark turns this way and all of a sudden goes this way, instantly, no time delay, this one will reverse. And so that's what's making us think, whoa, what is going on here? Now, they're also trying to find a theory that applies to these little bitty particles and the whole universe, like big masses of planets and rocks and gas giants and all. So the scientists are looking for a theory of everything. So years ago, I read this book by Walter Truett Anderson, 1992. Reality Isn't What It Used to Be. When I read that book, I started having a wake-up call because it challenged some of my thinking of the times. I don't really remember too many of the specifics, but I remember how I felt. I really was disappointed and disillusioned about the institutions of the time that I trusted. So it made me question reality from that perspective. So now I'm going to give a few examples of our changing world. And remember, I'm only bringing these forth because I think we need to be able to adapt in order to survive as a species. So I'll hit on a few of them. We'll start with a basic in life, food. Now, we've all heard about GMOs and gluten and food additives and taste enhancers and all kinds of things. And we may have heard about how the livestock is being treated today with steroids and antibiotics and growth hormones and chemical food, and yikes. I used to think that the USDA and the FDA kept tabs on all this stuff. I'll just give you one quick example. Aspartame. Gosh, it was probably 10 years ago. I discovered there were over 900 scientific reports with proof galore that aspartame was harmful to the human body. And yet, it's still on the market. What? Yeah. 900 reports 10 years ago. Can you imagine the information that's available now? Why is it still in our food? So now let's talk a little more about quantum physics. If you've ever listened to any of the videos by Jim Al-Khalili, he's a British professor of theoretical physics at the University of Surrey. And he's done a number of videos, and one of his video series on the atom, he blatantly states that physical matter is an illusion. Now, he's not the only one. There are a lot of really brilliant people. A lot of these folks are starting to align on this idea that physical matter is an illusion. What? You mean this chair is an illusion? See, that's where it gets hard to get our arms around it. Artificial intelligence. Now, that's not an illusion. That is happening at a very rapid pace. And if you're not able to adapt in that area, you will be left behind. I'm already feeling left behind. I mean, I grew up in the generation where we didn't even have a TV when I was a kid. We went to the neighbor's house to watch TV. And now look at technology. Look at video games 40 years ago and today. You can see how quickly we are moving in that area. And if you ever watch any of the interviews with Sophia, she's a robotic artificial intelligence gal who's very realistic. And she does some of her own independent thinking. Very interesting. In the area of artificial intelligence, I was watching this episode number 4 of Nova Wonders. And the gal who was talking about it was trying to put me at ease a little bit. And she said, well, robots are really pretty stupid. They can't figure out basic problems. And she showed a picture of a robot trying to go up a step and it kept falling over. And now I've seen other videos where these robots can jump up those steps. But she said, so you don't have to worry. It's going to be decades before artificial intelligence is capable of thinking on its own. And at first I went, phew. But then I said, wait, decades? Actually, that could be 20 years or within the next 100 years, where computers are able to think on their own, the singularity. Learn more about that. And then there's the concept of peak oil. Now, I heard about this maybe 10, 15 years ago. And back then it was reported that we had about 50 years of supply of fossil fuels on the planet. Now, this isn't all the fossil fuels that's been detected. It's the fuel that's accessible. So, if we run out of the accessible fuel, and there are a number of countries who are oil producing and they're already tapping into their reserves. So what does this mean? Does this mean in 20 or 30 years we're not going to be able to drive cars? That'll change our world, won't it? We're oil dependent. Does it mean we're going to spend $20 a gallon for oil if the extraction costs go up too high? Yeah, things are changing. Another question is, there's a lot of research in alternative, thank goodness, finally, renewable energy. But are we going to get there in time to supply the world with energy on an alternative basis if we don't do more now in that area? So we'll see what happens in the area of energy. There's a lot of talk about free energy. I've got a video coming up on that. So here's another one for you. This one is a bit nightmarish. Transhumanism. If you're not familiar with it, it's already underway. Scientists have been successfully able to merge human DNA with animal DNA. So what does that mean? Why do we care? Well, we could have some pretty weird characters running around on our planet here if they're successfully able to create a crossbred human. Now, this would be great for the military. A soldier that can hear like a dog, smell like a cat, run like a wolf. Yeah. And if that creature didn't have a soul, we wouldn't have to worry about sending it into battle. There are a lot of moral implications on transhumanism. There's an organization that's dealing with these. It's called the Institute on Ethics and Emerging Technologies. You might want to check them out too and see what they're grappling with. And then there's the old idea called the New World Order. Now, there are several sources of the New World Order, so you might want to check them all out if you're curious about this. One of the concepts is that there's a very small group of people, 13 families, who are in control of all the wealth in the world. The cabal, the Illuminati, the global elite. You may have heard various names. Now, could a small group of people really run the whole planet? Maybe. There are other concepts on this idea of the New World Order. The reason I'm bringing it up is because apparently the objective is to bring humanity into a form of slavery. I've got a whole video on slavery coming up. There are lots of different kinds of slaves in our planet. If humanity loses its ability to act in its own best interest, and if we're dominated by either this wealthy group of people or by aliens, that's another concept here, what does that mean? Well, it's going to be a miserable future if it ever occurs that way. And this could be fearmonger talk. I'm not saying it's true or not true. I'm just saying it has grabbed my attention, maybe yours. How do we deal with it on an everyday basis? Now, the last one I'm going to bring up is the simulation theory. This one, when I first heard it, I went, oh, hogwash. And then I did a little research, because that's usually my reaction when I hear something new that's foreign to my way of thinking. But I decided to research it. I think Tom Campbell is a very good resource on this. He's got a lot of videos. He's done a lot of thinking. He presents it really well, too. I'm starting to pay more attention to this. When I first heard it, I said, really? We're in a virtual reality, not a biological world? Yeah, right. I would check it out. It could mean a very different interpretation of the way things are and the origin of humanity. It could change our interpretation of a lot of religious concepts, scientific concepts. So this could be a game changer. There's a lot of stuff going on. Thank you for listening to this, and thank you for doing your own research. All of us have our own inner wisdom, our everyday wisdom, and we can tap into that. And that's what part B of this video is all about. How do you develop it? So, you've got it, you can use it, and I think we can all do very well in our changing world. Thank you for watching the video. Blessings.